Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Welcome to this week's Ponderous Wednesday. Now for those of you who are new to my channel, Ponderous Wednesdays are all about having a good old ramble about a thought-provoking or interesting subject, and last week we hit the nail on the head by talking about some reasons not to buy silver. It's been my most popular video to date, which is I think a little bit ironic considering I've been talking about how much I love silver on this channel for nearly 2 years now, but it is what it is. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't checked it out, highly recommend you go and have a look. The link to it's down in the description below. This week, however, I want to balance the books. I want to talk about some reasons why I think silver is a good buy at the moment. But before we get into all of that, I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who is following the channel, who subscribed to the channel. If you would like to support my channel, please consider going over to my website and having a look at all of my hand-poured silver. Proceeds from the sales of those just go straight back into the Backyard Bullion brand and hand-poured silver making. So if you want to support everything I do here, please have a look at my hand-poured silver on my website, Backyard Bullion. Links are down in the description below. Now, reasons to buy silver in 2018. I want to caveat this with my usual disclaimer, as always, to say I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a financial expert, I'm just a guy who likes to buy shiny things and talk about them here on YouTube. So this video is not financial advice. Any financial decisions you make having watched this video are yours and yours alone, and I would highly recommend that you go and do as much research as possible before buying any silver. So, reasons to buy silver in 2018. I think the first place to start for me is a topic which I touched on last week, which is all around wealth preservation. So I talked last week that silver is not a get-rich-quick scheme. I firmly believe that. You may disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. And if you do, and by the way, if you do disagree with anything that I'm saying here today, please do comment, but remember to do so respectfully. You know, everybody is entitled to their opinion. I think silver is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's very much about wealth preservation. You know, you acquire silver. Do you buy silver? That is the kind of the ultimate question, I guess. You know, you pay money for silver, you pay it in fiat, but you gain, you know, this physical asset which sits here in front of you. So, you know, it's kind of an acquisition, I would say, rather than a purchase. So, you know, you are preserving that money, you know, that money that you would have maybe spent on something that you didn't necessarily need, like going out, wasting money on, I don't know, anything. It is saved. It is just formed into a different type of asset, and it is a really sort of physical asset. It's something real and tangible that you can hold. You know, you have it here in your hand. It's real. It's silver. You know, silver is a valuable commodity. It's traded globally, and it is something that you can have, and it will keep for a very long time. That's the whole point of precious metals. And because it's seen as that kind of safe haven, I suppose you could call it, and you physically hold it, it will never disappear completely. So if you invest in stocks and shares of a particular company and that company goes completely bust, as we've seen happen many times before, then you stand to lose absolutely everything in that investment. Whereas with silver and gold, it's physical, it's there. There would have to be some incredible, you know, earth-shattering, you know, change to the system for silver to end up being completely worthless. It would just, in my opinion, never happen. So, you know, theoretically it could happen if the world completely ended, there was no more humans left. I guess it's valueless, but, you know, it's not likely to happen. So in that situation, you know, silver is a great thing to hold, and it is something that is unhackable. That's another thing to talk about. You know, you talk about your bank accounts at the moment. They are just numbers on a screen that can disappear. You know, we hear about all of the hacks that go on all around the world at the moment. You know, it could be not just your bank account, it could be investment accounts with stocks and shares or anything. If they get hacked and you lose it all, it's very difficult to get it back. You know, some banks will protect it depending on what it is, but ultimately it might be gone for a long time, whereas something that's physical like this in your hand, nobody can get at this unless they physically come and find it. So obviously that raises other questions around personal safety and security when investing in stacking silver. That's a video for another whole time though, and I have talked about that before, but ultimately it's unhackable. You can't lose the silver. It's not just going to disappear into thin air. Which is, I guess, a really important thing. The other thing about it being a safe haven is that it has got 5,000 plus years of history being used as a currency. You know, there is a reason why human history has fallen towards silver and gold as that metal of choice, or as that commodity of choice, that item of choice for currency and for basically wealth and money and bartering throughout human history. It's been that common denominator that people have used, and that just has so much weight for want of a better phrase, in the silver market. It is that underlying premise which makes silver so reliable, and metals generally as well. You know, they are physical. Silver will not degrade over time. It will tarnish over time, as you've seen perhaps on these Austrian Philharmonics. You get different colours coming out, but ultimately it's still silver, and an ounce of silver now will be an ounce of silver in 100 years' time if you keep it nicely in a drawer. Obviously, if you keep it and you hold it all the time, you'll wear out a little bit, but it'll still be pretty much an ounce of silver. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is that silver does have a really, really strong possibility of quite huge growth. So I've talked a lot about it being wealth preservation, and it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. And I still firmly believe that. I am sceptical about the chances of silver shooting the moon. You know, in 2018, there's been a few comments that came on last week's video that silver would shoot the moon in 2018. I'm not entirely sure that that's a possibility. Maybe in the future at some point. There are a lot of you know, indicators to talk about why it might go up in value quite considerably, but ultimately I'm not entirely convinced on that. But that is my opinion, and I agree that some people think the different side of that coin, for want of a better phrase. However, silver demand is growing within industry, so you've got to look at sort of the global side of things. You know, there's a lot of things going on for silver at the moment which are very good and might be indicators that in the future there will be a price correction. So silver as an industrial metal is probably it is the single biggest use of silver in the world. It's 56% of silver goes into industry, and silver demand is growing considerably in some of the biggest countries in the world. So for example, China and solar energy. You know, that is an industry which is growing incredibly, and silver is one of the prime components within solar technology, and that is a very, very interesting thing to have a look at. In terms of sort of supply and demand, you know, you've got to also look at the global markets on this side of things. We had obviously the huge price spike in 2011, followed by a massive dip in silver prices over the next sort of couple of months after that huge spike. And as a consequence, a lot of the different mining countries and producers around the world now, and still do now, continue to struggle to bring silver out of the ground at a reasonable price. In fact, a lot of mines operate at a loss at the moment. So what has that led to? That has meant that there has been a lot of exploration cutting and various other sort of cost-cutting exercises by these companies, which has led to a fall in production. And we've seen the production of silver kind of hit that peak, which comes after, you know, the fall in production. You've got all of the projects and all of the mines which are currently open and producing, and that's fine. But because exploration was cut, that kind of sway of new production has been cut, and you can see we're at the top of the peak for that. And there is a prediction that the supply of silver over the next couple of years certainly will be going down, which is obviously something to factor in. You know, simple economics: if supply goes down, prices go up to match. So it could be an interesting time to see what happens over the next couple of years. You know, going back to that kind of industrial side of things, because silver is so cheap relative to other metals out there that might do similar things like platinum or gold, for example, and just because of the really unique characteristics of silver, it makes silver that industrial metal of choice. Even when you factor in things like the sales tax that you have in the UK on silver, because it's such a heavily used industrial metal, the government taxes it at 20%, and that includes buying bullion from a UK company. You know, it is still a very, very attractive priced metal for industry to use, and consequently it will continue to be so, and the demand for that will increase. So hopefully with the reduction in supply, we'll see increasing silver prices over time. When that'll happen, don't know. We saw a big spike last week, but ultimately it's a little bit of an unknown, and I think that's one of the last things which I want to sort of talk about. You know, silver is an unknown, so you know, the price of silver is incredibly low at the moment, and we've seen very, very favourable gold-silver ratio for silver at the moment, and I do think that that is a very good indicator of the fact that silver is very cheap at the moment, and that it might be the metal of choice to buy for the future. It's certainly for your everyday stacker and collector the metal that is probably most commonly picked up, certainly by beginners as well, because picking up gold, for example, very expensive for a very, very small thing, certainly with the gold-silver ratio where it is at the moment, and you can often pick up silver a lot cheaper than you can fractional gold. certainly relative prices to spot anyway. Not so true in the UK, which is kind of one of the reasons why in the UK you see a lot of more gold stacking for the longer term, because ultimately we can buy gold for kind of 2-3% over spot, whereas silver we tend to buy it at sort of 10, 15, 20, 25% over spot sometimes, depending on where you buy it. So you've got to appreciate that me being over here in the UK, it's a very different setup and market than it is in the USA. But in the USA you can buy silver at a very, very cheap price over spot, sometimes even at spot or under spot, depending on how you buy it, with credit cards or eBay bucks and things like that. So it's really good metal of choice, and you're able to save small amounts here, small amounts there, whereas you don't have to save up for a long time to buy a fractional piece of gold. So it's a really, really unique piece of metal like that. So that's my thoughts on the subject. As I said at the start of this video, these are just my thoughts on the topic. They are not a financial advice. So I would encourage you all please to comment on this video with your own thoughts and opinions. Please comment respectfully. Last week in the video which I put out about reasons not to buy silver, lots of very, very productive comments, and I really do appreciate that. And I really enjoy reading all of those comments and replying to you guys and having that discussion. This is what this is what this video is all about. This is what Ponderous Wednesdays are all about, to try and engage in that fun discussion about an interesting topic. If you like this video, please put a thumbs up on it. If you didn't like the topic of the video, but you liked my channel and you like the way I present the ideas, please still consider putting a thumbs up on the video. That would be very helpful to everything that I do here on my YouTube channel. And if you'd like to support my YouTube channel, please go over to my website, backyardbullion.com, where you can find all of my hand-poured silver and purchases of the hand-poured silver. Help continue my dream of becoming a full-time silver pourer and full-time YouTuber, and that would be very, very special. So thank you very much in advance if you do go over to my website and purchase something. Otherwise, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, and if you hit the little alarm bell, you get a notification when I upload future videos. Otherwise, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.